if your mitochondria start losing their vibration and get impacted, that's going to cause a lot of negative effects downstream, which one of those is nitric oxide production. And that's essential for blood flow, energy production, and just your overall health. Through thermogenesis, your white adipose tissue starts browning and it'll actually create heat, which then creates some thermogenesis. This is a positive thing. Cold exposure can really help with that. HIIT, or high intensity interval training, that can help stimulate that conversion from white to brown. It also just overall improves your ability to burn energy. They reduced insulin resistance 50% in animal studies. The monkeys in this study, they lost 11% of their weight in 28 days. Welcome everybody to the Ageless Future Podcast. This is your host tonight, Cade Archibald, and really excited to dive into some really cool content. Reagan last week covered a few little things on white fat cells and mitochondrial function. Tonight we're going to dive a little bit deeper into white fat cells and mitochondrial function. So let's dive in here. So ultimately, I really want to just help you guys understand what are white fat cells, why it's important, what are some benefits here? What are these white fat cells? So it's adipose tissue. So white adipose tissue, they impact mitochondrial function and impair nitric oxide production. So and that's what it's going to look like is belly fat, lots of fat. It's problematic because we store so much of it, and then you can get toxicity built up in those fat cells, as well as that excess fat creates dysfunction in your mitochondria. That's the energy factor, that little battery that's inside of your cells, just helping things hum. If your mitochondria start losing their vibration and get impacted, that's going to cause a lot of negative effects downstream, which one of those is nitric oxide production. And that's essential for blood flow, energy production, and just your overall health. So just think of it this way: white adipose tissue or white fat cells, very not great. So we want to convert that white fat into brown fat. White fat stores your energy while brown fat burns it to create heat. So it actually boosts metabolism, aiding in weight loss or weight management. The browning process can also help lower the risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So, if you can burn excess calories through that converting into brown fat, or that browning process, it really helps improve metabolic function and metabolic health. So, you can kind of see in this diagram, even like cold stimuli, that can help with this process. So cold plunges, cold exposure, that can actually help turn AT in this diagram. If you're watching the screen, that refers to white adipose tissue. And so you get a cold stimulus that's going to stimulate your sympathetic neurons to activate the browning of that through thermogenesis. And that your white adipose tissue starts browning and it'll actually create heat, which then this creates some thermogenesis. So this is a positive thing. So, that cold exposure can really help with that. Some other ways to convert white adipose tissue into more brown fat cells would be not overeating. So make sure you're tuned into your satiation, and looking at your ghrelin hormones will have some things to do with that. But some other combinations: cold exposure, exercise, and then you want to create reactive oxygen species, mitochondrial dynamics with different exercise. So these are all different ways, different inflammation and ER stress. So endoplasmic reticulum stress. So this can be, and then cold exposure, HIIT workouts, exercise, even just enjoyable physical activities, being outside, sunlight, movement, good positive relationships. Funny enough, if like you feel good about yourself, about others, that's something that you want to consider. But yeah, those cold temperatures and physical activity, particularly that HIIT or high intensity interval training, that can help stimulate that conversion from white to brown. It also just overall improves your ability to burn energy. So obviously, exercise, a big important thing. Another thing is looking at some different peptides that can help aid in this process. So a few listed here, and I wouldn't necessarily say this is all of them, because there's others that can help in this depending on what direction we're doing, especially if we're talking about not overeating. You have the GLP-1s that can be helpful there. But most importantly, Epitalon, this can boost your mitochondrial health and your telomeres. So it's a telomerase peptide. MOTS-c, this actually enhances your mitochondrial function and metabolic function. ACE-31, this helps protect muscle, build blood vessels by improving growth and repair of tissues, which supports better mitochondrial function. So ACE-31, another great peptide, great for muscle and tissue building. Adipotide, this is another one that's great for what it does. It specifically targets your blood vessels that feed white adipose cells, and it starves them out. So it kind of cuts off that pathway, and so you're not feeding your adipose cells as much. So this improves overall health function, the function of those white adipose tissues, while also creating energy efficient mitochondria. So, those kind of 4 peptides there that I have listed can be fantastic. A little bit more on adipotide. So this, we look at this is the fat melting peptide. So there's 3 core steps to the mechanisms with adipotide. It selectively targets inflammatory fat cells, so those white adipose tissues. So it targets those, binds to essentially prohibit receptors on endothelial cells of these blood vessels that supply white adipose tissue. So it kind of cuts off the blood supply for those. It creates cell death induction. So, adipotide, it disrupts that mitochondrial membrane within the endothelial cells. So that triggers apoptosis. So that's cell death in those cells, effectively cutting off that blood supply to the fat cells. So, just think about it. If you're just, you're starving something, you're eventually it's going to start wasting away. So that's the concept and how adipotide works when it comes to fat. And so, it kills that blood supply. With that disrupted blood supply, your fat cells, they lose their sustenance, begin to be metabolized by the body. So that results in weight loss, improved insulin sensitivity, all the things that you gain from losing fat. So, really, really great. So this is a study on adipotide through magnetic resonance images. So the study here showed a 27% reduction in abdominal fat using adipotide for just 28 days. Also on the insulin resistance side, which is huge with diabetes and a risk factor there, they reduced insulin resistance 50% in animal studies. The monkeys in this study, they lost 11% of their weight in 28 days. So really, really cool study there. And this was out of the Science. Let's see, the title on this was Peptide Mimetic, targeting white fat causes weight loss and improved insulin resistance in obese monkeys. So this was a animal study, obviously, science, translational medicine. This is back in 2011. So this has been around for a little while, this study. Yeah, just saw some really fascinating findings. They monitored renal function, other biomechanics safety parameters, and did not see any issues there. It was the way they conducted the study, and they had this 28-day protocol for 4 weeks, optimal doses, and they followed a recovery phase as well. They measured body weight, insulin resistance, and changes in fat mass using that magnetic resonance imaging, or an MRI. So yeah, very fascinating, very cool peptide, Adipotide. All right, let's talk a little bit about cold exposure. We mentioned that at the beginning as a really good source and something that helps with that white fat cells, that browning effect. So cold showers, ice baths, these activate your mitochondria and your fat cells to burn more fat, increase energy production. It's also reducing inflammation, helps turn unhealthy white fat off. So it creates more metabolically active brown fat, which contains more mitochondria, supports better fat metabolism. And yeah, you have just by cold exposure stimulating your mitochondria really helps with that conversion to trigger more nitric oxide through your brown fatty tissue, brown adipose tissue. It also converts your white adipose tissue into more brown fat, which is much more actively utilized. Your high intensity interval training, walks, brisk walks, anything that's gets your heart rate elevated a little bit more, you're going to start that process of stimulating more and more nitric oxide. So movement, activity, physical activity, so important when it comes to your mitochondria health, as well as, reducing your fat cells. Even getting outside, exposure to sunlight, nature walks, hiking, the UV light actually stimulates nitric oxide synthesis as well, or it can help with that process. So it can be huge. And even on the relationship side, so spending time with people who energize you, inspire you to new heights and new perspectives. Yeah, this can be huge. So challenge for you all is you can, 10-minute HIIT workout 3 times a week and take 1 cold shower each day. So the 1 cold shower might be a challenge for some of you. Obviously, if your providers may be advised against that. Not every single person, depending on what's going on heart health wise and a few things, you want to be aware of that. But yeah, get a HIIT workout in 3 times a week and 1 cold shower a day. And then track your energy levels every day. So just on a scale of 1 to 10, how is your energy today? At the end of the day, you just track that, and really curious to see what your results are. So looking forward to hearing everybody report back on that. And hopefully you learned some cool stuff on white adipose tissue versus brown adipose tissue. It's fascinating to see, really how that can be converted, as well as what we can do to promote more enhancement. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. This was a fairly quick one tonight, but hopefully you learned some cool stuff and ready to execute and implement. Let's get some HIIT workouts and some cold plunges or cold showers this week. Have an awesome one. We'll see you next time on the Ageless Future Podcast. See you, everybody.